Hi, I'm Rowena. My mom banned me from our family dinner, and the whole table laughed like I was the joke. But I didn't cry. I asked the owner for a seat. Because the owner? He knew me. They've tried to erase me for years, told people I was unstable, stole my scholarship, rewrote my father's will. And the worst part? They smiled while doing it. How do you sit across from people who betray you with a straight face? Would you still call them family? I stood at the hostess stand of Callahan's, my heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The woman behind the counter gave me a tight-lipped smile before scanning her screen. "I'm sorry, ma'am. There's no Judson listed for tonight's reservation." For a moment, I thought I misheard. I checked my phone. 7:15 p.m. Saturday night. Exactly when my mother said the family dinner would start. "There must be a mistake," I said calmly. "My mother made a reservation for 6. The hostess didn't even flinch. "There is a reservation for 6, but it's under Tanya Judson." Tanya, my sister, not me. I shifted slightly and glanced past her toward the dining area. There they were, my mother Deborah, Tanya, their husbands, and Deborah's longtime friend who always insisted on being included in family matters. They were mid-laugh, glasses raised, plates already half finished. So they were here, on time, without me. I clenched my jaw and smoothed my dress. My mother hadn't forgotten. She'd excluded me, on purpose. As I stepped forward, Tanya noticed me first. Her eyes widened, but not with surprise, more like satisfaction. Then Deborah looked up. She didn't flinch, didn't wave me over. Instead, she lifted her wineglass and called out across the room with a grin sharp enough to draw blood. "Well, well, you actually came." She laughed. "Didn't expect to see you here, sweetie. This place might be a bit upscale for your usual vibe, huh?" The table chuckled. Tanya raised a brow, tilting her wineglass as if in silent toast to my humiliation. I froze for just a second, every nerve in my body screaming for me to turn and walk out. But no, not this time. I took a breath and turned back to the hostess. "Would you mind letting Mr. Reuben Callahan know that Rowena Judson is here to speak with him?" She blinked. "Mr. Callahan? The owner?" "Yes." Behind me, I heard Tanya's high-pitched laugh. "Oh, come on. You really think dropping names is going to get you a seat?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Moments later, Reuben appeared from the private corridor. Calm, polished, the same as I remembered. He spotted me immediately, and his face softened. "Rowena," he greeted, voice warm. "It's been too long." I smiled. "Glad you're here, Reuben." He turned to the staff. "Please prepare a seat for Miss Judson at the family table." The entire table went dead quiet. Tanya's fork slipped. Deborah's smile froze in place. "She's not just a guest," Reuben continued. "She's family." Deborah's lips twitched. She wasn't used to being outplayed, especially not in public. As I walked toward their table, past the stares, the pitying looks from strangers, I stopped just behind my mother. I bent down slightly, close enough so only she could hear me. "Let's not pretend anymore, Mother." My mother didn't respond. Her face barely moved, but I caught the twitch in her jaw. Tanya stopped mid-sip, her glass hovering in the air like she forgot how gravity worked. The air around our table turned stiff. I didn't flinch. I pulled out the chair beside Reuben and sat down slowly, deliberately. He leaned toward a waiter and murmured something. A moment later, I was offered the exclusive chef's menu, something not even regulars received on a Saturday night. Deborah cleared her throat and let out a tight chuckle. "Reuben must be feeling nostalgic. Don't take it too seriously, dear." Reuben didn't miss a beat. "Actually, I take integrity very seriously, Mrs. Judson." I heard someone at a nearby table softly say, "Yikes," under their breath. I smiled, but only inside. This wasn't about revenge, it was about clarity. For a moment, no one spoke. Tanya shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. Deborah picked up her wineglass, but didn't drink. That silence? I let it breathe, let them stew in it. I thought about how I ended up here, this exact moment. 3 days ago, I sat across from Reuben at a quiet cafe near the marina. He looked uneasy, stirred his coffee twice before speaking. "I wasn't sure if I should tell you this," he said, voice low, "but your mother called me, years ago. right after we met about the restaurant proposal. I blinked. What? She said you were unstable, impulsive, said I'd regret working with you. He looked at me apologetic. At the time, I didn't know better. I remember nodding, biting the inside of my cheek. I didn't cry, not in front of him. Back in the present, I picked up my water and took a slow sip. Reuben told me what you said about me, I said, not bothering to hide the ice in my tone. Deborah gave me a tight smile. You've always been dramatic, Rowena. I simply gave him a realistic view of your tendencies. No, I put the glass down. You slandered me. You sabotaged my reputation. You did it behind my back because you didn't have the guts to do it to my face. She laughed once. Oh, please. You were chasing pipe dreams. Someone had to tell him the truth. Tanya muttered, Come on, this again? I looked at her, calm. He was about to invest in my dream, a real future. But you made sure he hesitated. You didn't just doubt me, you poisoned the well. Deborah rolled her eyes. If you failed, it would have been on me. And if I succeeded? I leaned forward. You couldn't handle that either. Reuben looked between us and then settled his gaze on Deborah. Some legacies don't fade, he said softly but firmly, but some do rot. Deborah didn't speak, but I could see the way her spine stiffened, like she'd been caught in a draft she didn't expect. Tanya mumbled something about drama queens, her tone coated in syrup and venom. Reuben didn't engage. He simply signaled for the waiter to begin service. The plates arrived, elegant, pristine, but no one touched a thing. I picked up my fork, cut into the appetizer, and placed a small bite on my tongue. The flavors blurred. It was good, I knew that, but my taste buds weren't the problem. Tanya let out a light chuckle. Still got that flair for theatrics, huh? I didn't answer. I just looked down at my plate, letting the memory flood in like a slow-moving tide. It was spring, 2019, my wedding day, Delmar Garden. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. Jazz trio, fresh white roses, sunset behind us. The seating chart had been agonized over for weeks. I'd saved the front row seat for her, labeled with her name, tied with a single white ribbon. She never came. I stood at the altar, trying not to look in that direction. Tanya whispered, She has a migraine, don't cause a scene. So I smiled. I cut the cake, I danced, I toasted. 2 days later, I saw a tagged photo of her, sipping cocktails on a yacht in Cabo. Same weekend, same time, smiling with strangers while I stood alone under fairy lights, telling myself it wasn't personal, but it was. I swallowed and placed my fork down, napkin folded neatly. Funny, I said, eyes on my mother. You couldn't bother to show up to my wedding, but this dinner? Impeccable timing. Deborah raised her eyebrows, amused. Your wedding wasn't exactly our kind of event. I tilted my head. No, Mom, it wasn't your kind, it was mine. And you made sure I knew I was on my own. She reached for her wine. Don't be so dramatic. You always make everything about you. I leaned in slightly. Maybe if someone else had tried to make anything about me, I wouldn't have to. There was silence again, the kind that fills every inch of a room without making a sound. Tanya broke it with a smug smile, raising her glass. That chip on your shoulder must weigh a ton. I didn't respond to Tanya's jab. I just stared at her, calm even, like a poker player holding the best hand at the table. She didn't know I'd already seen behind her smile, and she sure as hell didn't know I had the receipts. The tension thinned slightly as the entrees were placed down with quiet precision. Deborah swirled her wine without drinking it. Tanya leaned toward me across her plate of sea bass, voice suddenly sweet as syrup. So, how's that restaurant project of yours going? Still chasing little startups? I dabbed the corner of my mouth, slow and deliberate. You mean the one you pretended to care about 2 months ago? She blinked, then smiled, falsely innocent. I was just being supportive. Right. 2 months ago, she'd called out of nowhere, asked to meet for lunch, said she missed me. That alone should have triggered every red flag I had. But I went. Maybe I wanted to believe she meant it. We met at a spot in Hillcrest, quiet and casual. She ordered a kale salad and asked about my plans. I told her, just a little. I was excited, proud. I said I was working on a new concept, fast casual Mediterranean, sustainable supply chain, aiming for 3 locations in the first year, still under wraps. She smiled and nodded, asked investor-type questions that I mistook for curiosity. 2 weeks later, a contact of mine forwarded me a pitch deck from a local angel group. The concept, branding, market plan, even the rollout schedule, it was mine. Word for word. Except the name on the pitch, Tanya's boyfriend. She didn't just steal an idea, she weaponized my trust. I looked back at her now. Her smile had thinned. "If you're ever short on ideas," I said smoothly, "maybe next time just call me directly, instead of sending your boyfriend to pitch my deck." Tanya's eyes narrowed before snapping into that fake laugh of hers. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do." I cut into my food, still not breaking eye contact. Deborah finally chimed in, her tone sharp. "Let's not turn this into another performance." "No performance here," I replied, "just clearing the air." "You always make people uncomfortable," Tanya hissed. "Is that your thing now?" "No," I said, laying down my fork. "But if betrayal makes people squirm, that's not on me." Deborah looked between us, irritation flashing behind her mascara-heavy eyes. She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. "And if you're wondering how I handle betrayal these days, keep watching." Tanya's grin faltered. Her confidence cracked just enough to show the nerves she tried to hide. I didn't smile. I didn't soften. I pressed forward because surviving was never the goal. Tonight, I was done ducking punches. I was swinging back. I folded my hands gently in front of my dessert plate. "Since we're sharing," I said evenly, "did either of you hear about the scholarship I tried to set up in Dad's name?" Deborah glanced at me, her expression unreadable. "It was meant to be small, quiet, a fun for culinary students who grew up like he did, without much. Just something to honor him." No response, just the sound of silverware gently clinking on porcelain. "Well, the grant board got a letter. Anonymous, of course, but carefully worded, said the family didn't approve of his name being used in connection with my business." I looked straight at Deborah. "You signed it, didn't you?" She didn't blink, but her posture stiffened like stone. Tanya fidgeted with her napkin. "You always twist things," Deborah said calmly. "No, I remember them exactly how they happened. You tried to erase him again, but this time through me." Reuben, quiet until now, set down his glass with a dull tap. No one said a word. I wasn't done. "And while we're pulling receipts, Tanya, guess who called me last week? Mallory, from college. Remember her?" Tanya hesitated, then shrugged. "She apologized," I continued. "Said she felt awful for skipping my wedding. Said someone told her I had canceled it last minute and was having another breakdown." Tanya's face drained of color. "You didn't just want distance. You wanted isolation. You weren't satisfied with cutting me out. You had to make sure no one else stayed in." Deborah exhaled, annoyed. "You were always fragile. Everyone had to walk on eggshells." "No, Mom. You just didn't like it when someone pointed out the cracks." The waiter returned to refill water. I didn't move. I leaned in slightly and said with a calm clarity that quieted even the air, "This is your warning." Deborah scoffed. "Is this a threat now?" "No, it's a line. I've stopped asking for space at your table. I'm carving my own, and trust me, it's standing room only." Tanya gave a short, dry laugh. "You sound ridiculous." I picked up my glass, steady hands, no shake in my voice. "Try me again, and next time, it won't just be words." Deborah calmly lifted her napkin, dabbed her lips like the night hadn't spiraled into a silent war zone. Her posture didn't scream panic, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. She was preparing something. "Well then," she said with a controlled smile, "since we're laying cards out—" I didn't blink, and then Tanya reached into her purse and pulled out a tri-folded paper with her signature fake warmth. "Thought I'd share this with the family," she said, sliding it across the table like it was just another menu. "It's official. I've been appointed interim CEO of Judson Designs." I stared at the paper, then slowly reached for it. My hands were steady. The ink was fresh, signatures legit, notarized, no mention of me, not even a courtesy copy. Deborah added, "After the estate review, we needed a leadership plan that made sense." My jaw didn't drop, my voice didn't shake, but the temperature in my veins dropped 10 degrees. "You cut me out," I said slowly, "behind closed doors." "You've been distant," Deborah replied matter of fact. You didn't engage. Tanya showed commitment. You mean she kissed the ring? Tanya leaned back, satisfied. It's not personal, Rowena. It's about who shows up. I looked her dead in the eye. You're damn right it's not personal. It's calculated. You didn't just remove me, you erased me. A man at the next table glanced over. Another sipped their wine slowly, pretending not to eavesdrop. I didn't care anymore. I folded the document in half, then again. This will not stand. Deborah gave a dismissive wave. It's done. No, I said, quieter than before. It's fraud. Tanya's voice dipped. You don't have proof. I stood. Yet. I smoothed my dress, took one last look at the table that used to define me. Enjoy your dessert, I said, stepping back. You'll be choking on it soon. I turned and began walking away. Behind me, Tanya called out, smug and shrill. You were never going to win, Rowena. I stopped mid-stride. Tanya's voice still echoed behind me, smug and venomous. I turned slowly, heels clicking on the marble floor like punctuation marks. Every eye at the table was on me, but I wasn't looking for their approval. I walked back to the table with a calm that felt like thunderclouds rolling in. You think this is about winning? I said, placing my phone gently on the linen. I tapped the screen. A voicemail played, on speaker. Rowena, this is Daniel from the firm. I went over that waiver from 2006, the one your mother had you sign before college. That wasn't a release form. It was misrepresented. Technically, it was masked as a grant document. It won't hold in court. Silence. Dead, suffocating silence. Deborah's hands froze around her wine glass. I looked at her, controlled. That piece of paper you used to shut me out? Turns out it's void. You lied to a teenager and called it estate planning. Deborah opened her mouth, closed it again. Tanya tried to jump in. You weren't even involved back then. You made sure I wasn't. I reached into my bag, pulled out a manila envelope, and slid a printed copy across the table. Here's another throwback for you. Remember the Callahan Scholarship I proposed back in 2014? A pilot fund for women in culinary arts? Reuben leaned forward. Someone applied using a fake name. But the email, the birthday, even the headshot, it was you, Tanya. You photoshopped your own image onto my idea. He looked stunned. Tanya blinked rapidly, her smile collapsing. I needed that money, she said weakly. You stole that money, I corrected. You didn't even tell me. You could have asked. You didn't. It was years ago. And that makes it okay? I asked. You didn't just take a check. You took credit. You took opportunity. That was supposed to help girls like us, not bury me further. Tanya pushed her plate away, lips trembling. Deborah looked ready to implode. That voicemail could be anyone. It's admissible, I said simply. Guests from nearby tables had stopped pretending not to listen. One whispered to another. A woman across the room said aloud, This isn't a family meal. It's a takedown. Deborah stiffened. You don't have proof of intent. I don't need it, I said, rising to my feet, because everyone here can see exactly what you intended. I turned to Reuben, my voice low and level. I think it's time I opened the real envelope. I reached into my bag slowly, deliberately. The weight of the restaurant seemed to shift, like the air thickened with curiosity, confusion, fear. My fingers wrapped around the aged envelope, the one with frayed edges and my father's handwriting across the front. To my daughter Rowena, do not let them rewrite your legacy. I placed it gently on the table. Tanya scoffed. Deborah narrowed her eyes. Reuben leaned in, already sensing something seismic was about to break. This showed up 2 weeks ago, I said, voice steady. Hidden in an old toolbox at Aunt Claire's place, locked in a cedar box with Dad's initials carved on the top. I paused, then opened the flap. There was a letter and a will. Tanya let out a laugh that cracked at the end. Another letter? You think? I unfolded the document and slid it across the table, facing Reuben. He read in silence. The letter spoke first. I trust Rowena with the Judson name, the business idea she once shared with me, and the scholarship in my memory. I've split the estate equally, but if the family ever disputes her right to lead, this document stands as my final word. I looked up. This was notarized, 6 months before he died. Deborah was already shaking her head. That was never filed. That's invalid. He changed it. Reuben stood straighter. He didn't. I know the attorney. This is real, and it's binding. Gasps rippled across the restaurant. A fork clattered from another table. Somewhere near the bar, someone whispered, "Oh my God, they really tried to cut her out." Tanya's face paled to ash. "You can't be serious." I met her stare with full force. "You wore my dress. You took my clients. You silenced my name. And when none of that stopped me, you tried to erase my father's wishes too." Deborah's hands trembled slightly. She blinked hard. "You weren't ready, Rowena. You weren't strong enough. You always fell apart." "Funny," I said, eyes on her. "Here I am, still standing." Reuben's hand landed on my shoulder, firm but kind. "And from what I've seen tonight, you're the only one who's carried the Judson name with integrity." The room was no longer eating. They were witnessing. I turned to Tanya, then Deborah. "This isn't revenge. It's correction." The hush in the room didn't lift. Not after my last words. Not after my father's letter. The tension hovered like mist, too thick to ignore, too honest to sweep aside. Deborah wouldn't meet my eyes. Tanya looked like a wind-up doll stuck mid-spin. Reuben hadn't moved his hand from my shoulder, grounding me. I stepped back from the table slowly, aware of every eye in the restaurant on me. I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't proud. I was whole, for the first time in years. "I won't be filing anything tonight," I said, voice measured. "Not yet." Deborah's head snapped up. "You're bluffing. You have no standing." "I have a notarized will, a recorded voicemail, a forged pitch deck, and more witnesses than you planned on." I tilted my head. "But sure, let's call it a bluff." Tanya pushed her chair back, the legs squeaking loud against the hardwood. "So what now? You ruin us? Sue us all?" "No," I said. "I move forward. You stay stuck." "You think people will believe you?" Deborah's voice cracked. "After everything?" I scanned the room. A man nodded solemnly at me. A woman across the aisle offered a quiet thumbs up. Even the waitress, who had refilled my glass hours ago, gave me a tiny, affirming smile. "They already do," I replied. Tanya stood, jaw clenched. "You're not coming back from this." I smiled, tired but steady. "I don't need to come back," I said, "because I never left. You just tried to erase me." Deborah slumped slightly in her chair, her world unraveling. Her power, built on secrets and silence, was dissolving under fluorescent lights and linen tablecloths. Reuben handed me his business card. "When you're ready, come by the office. We'll file everything legally." "Thank you," I said, slipping it into my purse. I took one last look at the table, the broken dynasty they tried to protect by breaking me. Then I walked toward the exit, not with vengeance, with freedom. Outside, the air was cooler than I remembered, clean. My phone buzzed, a text from the scholarship board, the real one, approved. "Let's move forward with Judson Legacy. Congratulations, Rowena." I looked back through the glass door one last time. Tanya still standing, Deborah still stunned. And me? I walked away. Not because I lost my place at the table, but because I finally realized that seat was always mine. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that silence doesn't keep peace. It just lets injustice settle in. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't scream or fight. It's simply to stand, to speak, to stop apologizing for existing. I used to believe that being left out meant I was the problem. But now I know I wasn't missing from the table. I was the table. And if you've ever felt like you didn't belong or that your voice didn't matter, let me be the one to remind you, you don't need permission to take up space. You never did. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to someone you loved, just to protect your own peace? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a 1 in the comments if this video hit home for you, or let me know where you're watching from. If this story made you feel seen, heard, or just a little braver, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter in our journey. Because out here, we speak the truth, even if our voice shakes.
I have a new girlfriend, and I'm going to live with her now, so I'm divorcing you. You'll need to go back to your parents. I don't need you anymore. If you want to be the breadwinner or a housekeeper, you can stay with my parents. Do you understand? My husband and his parents laugh at me and treat me terribly, but I'd rather leave them. My name is Lauren, and I'm a 28-year-old office worker. I've spent my whole life working. After graduating from college, I started at a big company and worked there for about 6 years. I worked hard, earned promotions, and eventually became a department manager at a young age. My boss is supportive, and my team is motivated and talented. Work-wise, I was very happy, but my personal life was unfulfilling. I had one boyfriend during college but none since I started working. Worried about me, a friend organized a dinner party where I met Jesse. He was kind, had a nice smile, and we got along well because we were the same age and had a lot in common. We soon became friends, exchanged numbers, and started going out. After a while, he confessed his feelings, and we started dating. We got along well, and eventually he proposed, and we got married. I was so happy to marry the man I loved. Soon after, I went to meet his parents. They were very kind and welcomed me warmly. "Lauren, it's nice to meet you. I can't believe such a beautiful person is marrying Jesse," they said. They were so proud of their son. "Hey, Mom and Dad, stop it. You're scaring Lauren," Jesse said. "Oh my, if you really think so, it's okay to say it. It's a compliment," they replied. His parents were friendly and easy to talk to, just like Jesse. They asked if I would quit my job after getting married. I told them I planned to keep working because I had a good job at a good company. They thought that was great. I felt relieved. My friends had told me that their mothers-in-law often pressured them to quit their jobs, saying it was a wife's duty to support her husband. So, I was glad that my future mother-in-law seemed more understanding. After meeting my husband's parents, we got married, and I was excited about starting our new life together. My husband moved into my house, and I was thrilled to be newlyweds with the man I loved. I enjoyed being with him at home and having him there when I got back from work. 5 months into our marriage, my husband brought up something he wanted to discuss. He asked if I would consider living with his parents. I was surprised and asked what he meant. He explained that his parents were getting older, and he was worried about them. I understood his concern, especially since he is an only child. My parents are the same age as his, but my brother and his wife live with them, so I don't have the same worries. I asked if his parents had a room for us, and he mentioned that they used all the rooms for different purposes. He suggested that we renovate their house to make it a 2-family home. That way, we could have our own space while still being close to his parents. It sounded like a good idea, a way to live in a nice, spacious house while keeping our privacy. I agreed, and my husband was so happy. Later, his parents visited us, and they were very grateful. Seeing how kind and cheerful they were, I thought living in the same house might not be so bad. Soon after, my husband and I started discussing the renovation, which would cost around $220,000. But as we were discussing the renovation, my husband made a surprising request. He said, "Actually, I have a favor to ask. Can you pay for the remodeling?" I was confused and asked, "What do you mean? The full amount?" My husband looked uncomfortable and said, "Actually, we are in debt." I was shocked. Neither my husband nor his parents had mentioned anything about debt when we were dating or when we got married. I asked how much debt they had, and he told me it was around $280,000. I was expecting a smaller amount, so I was very surprised and even shouted in disbelief. My husband explained that the debt had started small but kept growing, and now they couldn't pay it off. His parents were living on a pension, and he couldn't help them as much as he wanted to, so the debt kept increasing. I was still shocked and upset by this sudden news. I had no idea my in-laws owed so much money. Then my husband asked me for another favor. "Will you help me pay off my parents' debt? They can't afford it anymore, and I don't make a very good salary either." I asked him if it would be tough to renovate the house and live together as 2 families under these circumstances. He insisted that the renovation was still important and we should go ahead as planned. He asked me to cover both the remodeling costs and his parents' debt, which totaled $250,000. He admitted it was a lot to ask but said he wanted to take care of our life together and protect his parents because he loved both me and them. He apologized for being greedy and asked if I would help him, promising to pay me back little by little. I was very distressed. My husband and in-laws had no one else to turn to, and I knew my husband loved me. But looking back, I think I was blinded by love. Despite my doubts, I agreed to pay for it. My husband thanked me sincerely, even shaking my hand, and later told his parents. They came to our house and apologized, with my mother-in-law even shedding tears of joy. I knew I had to do my best to take over the debt. Although I had some savings, I was afraid to pay it all at once. So, I decided to use about $450,000 from my savings and then pay the rest in installments. We discussed the repayment plan with my in-laws and moved forward from there. I explained to my in-laws how I planned to make the payments in installments. They told me to do whatever I thought was best. Then my husband suggested that I transfer the money directly to the debt repayment account instead of sending it to my in-laws first. He admitted that they weren't very good at managing money and worried about handling such a large sum. My in-laws agreed, and I realized it would be more convenient to send the money directly to avoid any complications. So, I agreed to this plan. After we settled on this, my in-laws looked very relieved. They said they no longer had to fear the monthly debt collectors, which had been very stressful for them. My husband told them to thank me properly, and they expressed their gratitude many times, saying they were so glad I became their son's wife. While I was happy that my in-laws were relieved, I couldn't help but feel a bit uncomfortable. It felt like they might see me as just a source of money. But I wanted to support my husband's family, so I began making the payments. At the same time, we remodeled our house and completed the two-family home. We started living together in a beautiful, spacious house, and my in-laws were very happy. My husband was also excited about the new house. I enjoyed cooking in the new kitchen, and I was glad we had done the remodeling. The house was more convenient, and being closer to work saved me time. With the extra time, I could study more and work on paying off the debt. However, something started to bother me. My husband didn't help with paying off the debt at all, even though he had promised to help when we first talked about it. When I asked him about it, he said his salary wasn't enough to make the payments. I asked my husband how much he takes home and requested to see his pay stubs, but he refused to show me, so I still don't know how much he earns. But he should be paying off his debts. I worked hard for about a year to pay down the debt. Then one day, my in-laws asked me how much was left to pay. They figured after a year, I shouldn't have much left, maybe around $220,000 to $280,000. I told them that we had paid back about $50,000 this year, leaving around $110,000 to go. My in-laws were shocked. You paid back that much? Lauren, that's incredible. At this rate, you'll be done in about 2 years. I replied that if I kept working hard, I could pay it off, and they were so happy that they started crying. Seeing them so happy made me feel like all the hard work was worth it. However, a few days later, something unexpected happened. I had to work late that day, so I told my husband I'd be home late. But work went faster than expected, and we finished on time. I hurried home, planning to cook dinner for my husband. When I got home, I saw my in-laws' shoes at the door and realized they were visiting. As I walked towards the living room, I overheard a conversation between my husband and his parents. They were talking about me. You made the right choice marrying her, didn't you, Jessie? You did great. I can't believe you found a woman with so much money, his parents said. My husband replied, when I found out she worked for a big company, I was careful and made sure to win her over. You should be more grateful. Then they started talking about the debt. You're one of the reasons we're in debt, someone said. But I'm the one who spent the least, replied my husband. They talked about how much he spent on gambling, especially horse racing. He tried to defend himself, saying, Sometimes I hit the jackpot, so we were in the black for a while. But his parents quickly pointed out that they still owed $280,000. They seemed relieved that at this pace, they would soon be debt-free and even mentioned how I had paid for the house renovation. My husband said, "I got a really good wife, but I'm going to get rid of her once she pays off the debt," and he and my in-laws laughed. I was so shocked that I couldn't move from the front door for a while. After calming down a bit, I made a loud noise closing the door and said, "I'm home." When I entered the living room, my husband and in-laws greeted me with smiles. "Oh, Lauren, welcome home. Good job today. Well, we're heading back to our room. Let's have dinner together again soon," they said. Their smiles scared me because I had just heard their earlier conversation. My husband, pretending to be a loving partner, also shocked me. I couldn't believe all the effort I'd put into paying off their debt. He asked, "Didn't you say you had to work late today?" I replied, "Yeah, but I finished sooner than expected, so I hurried home to make dinner." I tried my best to stay calm during dinner so my husband wouldn't suspect anything. But later, when he went to take a bath, I went to my room and cried alone. After crying my heart out, I knew I had to do something. I started preparing for a divorce and made plans for my life after it. 5 months later, I pretended to be happy and told my husband that I had paid off my in-laws' debt. He was shocked. "What? You paid off the $280,000 debt? That was supposed to take about 2 years." I explained that I had some savings but was afraid to use it all at once, so I had been paying little by little from my salary. But since we were already below $220,000, I decided to pay it all off at once. I then asked if I could check his bank book, and I showed him mine, proving that $150,000 had been paid all at once. My husband tried to hide his excitement but couldn't completely. "Wow, Lauren, thank you. My parents are going to be so happy," he said, pretending to cry, but I knew it was just an act. Soon after, my in-laws came over and thanked me as well, saying, "Thank you so much. I'm so glad I met Lauren. You're like a god," my husband said. If I didn't know the truth, I might have been happy just to go along with everything, even though I was being deceived. But I already knew what kind of people they really were, so I was ready with my plan. A few days later, my husband asked to talk to me. He looked very serious. "What's going on?" I asked. "I'm sorry, Lauren, but you have to leave," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked, pretending to be surprised. "I have a new girlfriend. I'm going to live here with her, so I'm divorcing you. You're going to stay at my parents' place." I was shocked by his unexpected confession. I knew from overhearing their earlier conversation that my husband planned to leave me after I paid off his debts, but I didn't expect him to openly admit his cheating. And what did he mean by sending me to live with his parents? "I'm not sure I understand," I said. My husband's mood turned sour. "You just don't get it. I don't need you anymore. But if you want to stay as a breadwinner or housekeeper, you can." Just then, the front door opened, and my in-laws walked in. "Jessie, did you finally tell her?" they asked. "Yeah, I told her," he replied. They laughed and said, "You can stay with us if you do the chores, but of course, we'll charge you rent." I couldn't believe how terrible they were. But I was ready. "Actually, you all need to leave," I said. My in-laws looked shocked. "What are you talking about?" they asked. "Have you forgotten? I paid for the renovation, and the house is in my name. I have the right to decide who stays and who goes." Their faces turned pale as they realized the truth. "I'm sorry, but you can't live here anymore. If we get divorced, you'll be strangers to me," I continued. My in-laws started to grasp the seriousness of the situation, but my husband, trying to fight back, said, "But you paid off our debt. You're the one losing money. If we didn't have debt, we could afford a new place." "That's true," I replied, But thank you for letting me live in a nice house while you paid off your debts. My in-laws and husband were left speechless. I told them the truth. I'm sorry, but I didn't actually pay off the remaining $150,000 of the debt. They were shocked. But the money was missing from your bank book, they exclaimed. I explained, that was just from a separate account I set up to move money around. The debt is still $150,000. I've been making large payments to keep the collectors at bay, but they'll be coming soon. You're responsible for paying the rest. My husband and in-laws panicked. I then warned Jesse, you admitted to having an affair, so you'll need to pay alimony. I'll also charge your girlfriend for her part in the affair. He became worried and said, she only stayed with me because she thought I had a house and money. If I have to pay alimony, she'll leave me. I responded, that's not my problem. You made your choices. My husband, terrified of losing his mistress, and my in-laws, scared of losing me, begged me not to leave. They were selfish and only cared about themselves. I told them, I'm done with all of you, no matter what you say. I've already put the house on the market, and through my lawyer, I'll make sure you pay back the $110,000 I covered for your debt. My in-laws were stunned, realizing they were about to lose everything. I filed for divorce and demanded alimony from my husband and his affair partner. I also demanded the $110,000 from my in-laws that I had paid on their behalf. The renovated house sold for about $400,000 because it was in a good location and a family wanted a duplex. After covering the $320,000 I owed for the debt and renovation, I made a profit of $80,000. On top of that, I received alimony from my ex-husband and his affair partner and got the $120,000 from my ex-in-laws. In the end, I came out ahead in this situation. Given the damage I suffered and the way I was treated, I believe this outcome was fair. I had saved up money and learned to invest so that I could pay off the debts as quickly as possible, and it paid off in the end. I had saved up quite a bit of money from the start. I invested a few tens of thousands of dollars, and within a year, my investments grew significantly. Plus, I got a raise, so I was earning a good income. Because of my savings, I was able to take bold steps. In the end, I benefited the most, while my former in-laws ended up back in debt and lost their house. Honestly, I think they deserved it because they tried to deceive me. People like that should face the consequences. This experience has taught me to be more careful about who I trust. Moving forward, I'll continue saving and growing my assets so that I can enjoy a comfortable life in my later years. I also want to make happy memories with people I can truly trust. What did you think of the story?
An old woman who doesn't even do household chores. My eldest son and his wife carelessly said things they shouldn't have. They will regret this. Fine, I'm moving out. The next day my daughter-in-law called, but I ignored it. It's too late now. My name is Carol. I lost my husband when I was 45 and started working at a medical clinic as an office worker. It's a job with no room for mistakes because it involves protecting patients' lives, just like nurses and pharmacists. I worked hard to raise my son John. He graduated high school, got a job at a big company, and met the love of his life there. I was excited to meet her because my son said she's very cute, but she wasn't what I imagined. She may be pretty, but she's flashy with blonde hair and has a rough attitude. Her name is Joyce, she's 27, and she often cusses out my son. She bragged about being a former gang member and talked about her wild past, like throwing hooligans into the river. I told my son I was against their marriage, but he was totally smitten and insisted, if I can't marry her, I'll never get married. My son and Joyce got married without a wedding, just registering their marriage and living together. Looking back, this might have been the start of our problems. After getting married, my son quit his job and said he was going to open a shop. I was shocked and went to his house because it wasn't something to discuss over the phone. What do you mean, open a shop? I asked. I'm just fed up with the rigid corporate structure, he said. Did something unpleasant happen? I had a bit of an argument with a female employee. You weren't fired for sexual harassment, were you? I asked. Do I look like Daniel Bryan? He joked. My son always makes jokes, even at 37, and doesn't know when to stop. What kind of shop do you plan to open? I asked. A cafe that serves delicious coffee, he said. There was a song about that, but maybe it was about tea. Do you have savings? You'll need about $300,000 to open a shop, right? $300,000. He looked shocked. I got worried. Opening the shop without a plan would fail quickly. Does my son understand how hard it is to run a restaurant? Why don't you try working in a cafe first? I suggested. Joyce is excited about opening the shop. How about becoming a hired manager? A hired manager doesn't have much freedom. Of course, I'm going to be the owner and master. With my ideas and intellect, running a cafe is easy. They called me Einstein back in high school, you know. Your classmates were full of liars. Now I look like Lauren Alexis to you? I said. I didn't say that. We couldn't even have a proper conversation. Do you have any savings? I asked. I don't, so I'll probably go into debt first. He wasn't even thinking carefully, just holding onto burning ropes. What's the theme for your store? I'd asked. What do you mean? He hadn't thought of anything. I got more worried. Who's your target? What kind of customers do you want to attract? Young and cute female customers, he said. We're having a serious conversation here. I was getting angry. I could post only beautiful women allowed outside the shop. Do you have a unique selling point? Something no other shop has? I asked. Of course I do. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it my trump card. Can you tell me what it is? I asked. Joyce will be the waitress. Once that happens, we'll have a long line of male customers. If I had to choose a cafe, I'd pick one with a cute waitress, especially since cafes are usually visible from the outside. If they see Joyce's lovely figure, we're sure to attract a crowd. This was hopeless. I couldn't take him seriously. As I was about to leave, my son stopped me. There's something I want to discuss. What is it? I asked. I want us to live together. With Joyce helping with the shop, we can all live under the same roof. I want you to take care of the house chores. Cooking, cleaning, laundry. There's a lot, right? Let Joyce do that, I said. I'm a full-time employee, my son replied. I work full-time even at your age. The director said I could work until I'm around 65. Being at the same workplace for a long time builds trust. You should have kept your job instead of losing your temper. My son was silent for a few seconds, then replied with a troubled expression. I just made a small mistake, but my stupid boss started yelling. You made a mistake at work? I asked. Not at work, but I asked a slightly plump female employee from another department if she was pregnant, and she glared at me. Turned out she wasn't. You're kidding. If you ask a woman who's not pregnant how many weeks she's been pregnant, it's like telling her she's fat. You idiot, it's not something to laugh about. More than her, the boss was angry and criticized me as if I was not a human being, so I retaliated and told him I'd quit. What does he think a job is to quit so easily? So why jump to opening a cafe without looking for another job? Writing another resume is a hassle. If you're going to open a shop, you'll have to write documents that are more tedious than a resume. Then my son waved his index finger from side to side, saying no, 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 with a condescending attitude. I resisted the urge to slap him in the face. Writing a resume for a job you don't like and writing documents to realize your dream is completely different, he said. You're kidding me, I said. I'm being for real. There's no point in getting heated with someone who's not even serious about their own store. If having your own store is your dream, then I won't hold you back, but I'm not doing any of your house chores. Come on, I need your help. You can take care of household chores even while running a store, can't you? Actually, I made a promise with Joyce. Convincing Joyce was tough. She didn't easily say yes. I told her that I'm happy just living with her and I don't need anything else, even said she doesn't have to do any household chores. I was speechless at his audacity, but couldn't let it slide. So why should I be the one to do the household chores? Actually, it's not just household chores. I'd like you to help with preparing the shop too. It's not as much as running a pub, but the prep work seems hard, doesn't it? If you're including me as a staff member, then I'll have a say in things. I'd rather you not, he said. I think I need to crush my son's naivety before we open the shop. Otherwise, it will be a disaster. With that in mind, I asked a basic question. Do you have the stamina to keep running the shop? I'm confident in my stamina, my son replied. I stretch and lift weights every day without fail. I'm not talking about physical stamina, I said. I'm talking about the financial foundation to pay employee salaries and cover expenses, even if we have no customers and run at a loss. To be honest, I don't have confidence in those aspects, he admitted with a smile. Seeing him say that, all I could do was sigh. Sighing lets happiness escape, he quipped. You're the one making me sigh, I retorted. Me? Why? Oh, shut up, I said, clearly upset. There are still a lot of things that need to be discussed. I rambled on quickly. If we're serving light meals besides coffee, we need more ingredients, equipment, suppliers, interior signage, and maybe staff. The menu can't be a poorly handwritten one. The location is very important. Did you check if there are any similar coffee shops nearby? You'll need to use social media and flyers, devise a PR strategy, and show a detailed plan. Otherwise, nobody will lend you the startup capital. As I was talking, Joyce, who had been silent all this time, interjected, Hey, why do you get to decide? For a moment, I didn't know who she was talking to. Did she mean me? John's the one opening the shop, right? Running a restaurant is tough. Shut up, old hag, she snapped. I couldn't believe my ears, but my son stepped in with a forced smile. Easy now, don't get upset, Mama. Let's continue this conversation tomorrow. I thought I heard old hag. But I must have misheard. Maybe my hearing is getting worse. I have a medical office job with a monthly income of $3,800 and I get bonuses. I've saved a lot of money over the years by not splurging. I wouldn't mind supporting my son a little if he's serious about working hard. Indeed, having your own shop is a dream and must be rewarding. I started living with my eldest son and his wife on the condition that I would be involved in the shop's management. I didn't live for 65 years for nothing. I used my connections to get a referral to a trustworthy tax accountant and convinced my complaining son and his wife to take the accountant's advice. Thanks to that, we were able to borrow $90,000 for startup capital. We managed to start the cafe, but it isn't always busy. One night, Joyce came out of the bathroom, walked to the kitchen in just a bath towel, and opened the refrigerator. I was stunned and couldn't say anything, but I couldn't stay silent. Joyce, if you were living alone with my son, I'd understand, but since I'm also living here, that attire is not acceptable. It's because you're here that I'm wrapped in a towel. If you weren't here, I'd be stark naked. I was literally frozen with my mouth open. Can you stop nitpicking? I told myself to calm down. One morning my daughter-in-law came to the kitchen yawning in her pajamas and began to eat the breakfast I had prepared without saying a word. The cafe opens at 7:30 a.m. for breakfast, but it was already 8 o'clock. Joyce, you don't seem to be at the cafe lately, John said. I don't need to go. Some ugly customer tried to exchange numbers with me. I got pissed and refused. He started saying, What's with that attitude? I'm a customer here. So I told him, You're a million years and 5 days too early to flirt with me with that face. I gave my smug daughter-in-law a stern look. Our customers are important. The cafe can't run without them. We don't need customers like that. I splashed water in his face and told him never to come back. You're lying, I started, but my daughter-in-law cut me off. If it were the old me, I wouldn't have hesitated to pour hot coffee over his head. He should be thankful it was only water. This can't go unspoken. I'm your mother-in-law. Joyce, you need to find a job, even part-time, and help with the household expenses. Is that an order? She glared at me with terrifying eyes. Does she think she can intimidate me? I mustn't back down. Joyce, if you don't want to work, at least do the housework. Shut up, old woman. Nothing pisses me off more than being ordered around. Who do you think you're talking to? Who the hell do you think I am? I refuse to be lectured by some old woman like you. My fear and anger crossed and I was trembling. Ha, you're not thinking of slapping me, are you? If you do, I'll punch you in the face. This is it. I have to tell my son about this. When the cafe closed, I said, there's something important I need to talk about. If it's a lecture, I don't want to hear it, he replied. I told my son in detail about Joyce's abusive language, but he said something unbelievable. You nagged Joyce again, didn't you? What do you mean, nagged? I'll tell you something since you don't seem to realize it. You're always negative. Ignoring his wife's behavior, my son had the nerve to tell me off. When you keep correcting others, they will distance themselves from you, even if you are right. I'm the one in the wrong. I asked, shocked. Even if you think someone is saying something strange, affirm them first. If a person feels affirmed, they will be more likely to listen to what you have to say. That's how you connect with others, Mom. My son is completely on his wife's side. Feeling defeated, I left the cafe. The number of customers has dropped significantly. A rumor probably spread about Joyce's behavior towards a customer. Asked my son, who was idly standing at the corner, John, do you check the passbook? I don't check it that much, he replied. You should occasionally update the passbook and keep track of the balance, I said. We're still fine, right? It seems he doesn't know that I've been contributing a small amount every month because he doesn't often look at his passbook. I don't particularly want gratitude or thanks, but he's just never aware of his financial status. This is not good. You can't get by with rough estimates and expectations. Life always finds a way, he said. There's no way it will. Absolutely no way. I replied. Why the immediate denial? Let's talk about something fun. It's said that good fortune comes to those who laugh often. Look, I'm an optimist. I can't bear it and let it all out. What you have isn't optimism but mere wishful thinking. Optimism is thinking positively even when faced with adversities, viewing even the negatives in a positive light. It's the ability to turn tragedies into great outcomes with a fighting spirit. You can't be an optimist without these traits. Wishful thinking and true optimism are totally different. Despite my earnest words, my son began slapping the counter. Tap out like when a high kick puts someone down, you mount on top of them and throw punches at their face. Enough. This is about your store, I said, seriously worried. Shut up. If you can only say depressing things, then get lost. I couldn't believe my ears. I can't stand to watch my son change, poisoned by that woman. I hate to say it. Then don't say it, my son interrupted. Joyce doesn't help with the shop, doesn't do housework, and verbally abuses me. Is this okay? When I talk to her about it, it causes tension, so you, as her husband, have to say something. Oh, Joyce. What? I turned around in surprise and my son burst out laughing. Got you. You really fell for it. Is this how he ridicules his parents? I've made up my mind. I won't interfere with his shop anymore, and I won't do any housework. Even if the room is messy and I want to clean up, I'll resist and do nothing. In the morning, my daughter-in-law, in her pajamas, asked, "What about breakfast? Why don't you make it? I have to go to work." "See you," I replied. ignoring her and leaving the house. I finished dinner at a family restaurant near the clinic and got home around 10:00 p.m. My furious daughter-in-law confronted me. "What time do you think it is now? You didn't make dinner. Are you trying to starve me to death? If you're hungry, you should make dinner yourself. You're not a child," I said. "Are you picking a fight with me?" she snapped. As I ignored her and headed to my room, she grabbed my arm. "Wait. If you resort to violence, I'll call the police immediately." Perhaps intimidated by my resolute attitude, she let go of my hand. "By the way, you haven't done the cleaning or the laundry. That's why, Joyce, you should do it. If you don't do the housework, there's no point in you being here." "Are you serious? I think I'm a considerable help. What about you? You don't do housework. Don't help with the shop, just complain to others. What good are you doing? Badmouth me any more, and I'll hit you." "Getting injured would hinder my own work," I said as I took refuge in my room. I could hear yelling from the bedroom. Even though I knew it wasn't right, I ended up listening. "Because you spoil her, that old woman gets out of line. Every time she sees someone, she starts complaining. Do something. If you can't say anything to your parents, I'll leave." "Stop. That would be a problem. If you leave, I'll lose my reason to live. If you really think that, then do something." "I got it, I'll do something. So don't say scary things like leaving. It's pitiful. Did I raise him wrong? I guess I inadvertently spoiled him because we were a single-parent household." I wanted to cry. My son said he had something important to discuss, so I went to the shop after it closed. Joyce was there too, looking at me with a mocking expression. "What's the important matter? Do you plan to not do chores anymore at all?" my son asked. "I've been telling you that you should do your own housework," I said. "Shut up, I told you not to order me around. If you're not going to do housework, then get out." Joyce spat out harshly and gestured to my son. When he hesitated, she whispered something. But I could hear her. "If you don't say that, we're getting a divorce." "The woman who doesn't do any housework should get out," my son repeated. They would surely regret making me genuinely angry. "Just to confirm, John, are you really okay with me leaving?" Get out, just get out already," he shouted. "Then I'm leaving immediately. Just one thing." "What more can you possibly want?" John asked. "I'm cutting ties with you as your parent. From now on, we're strangers, so don't rely on me." "That's what I was about to tell you, idiot," Joyce snapped. "You just keep quiet. I'm talking to my son." When I shouted, Joyce grabbed my arm. My son hurriedly stepped in between us. "Hey, let's stop the violence. Let go of her." "Shut up. We're not wrestling. This is a serious matter. Did you forget that I warned you I'd call the police if you touched me?" Joyce withdrew her hands but glared at me. I moved out immediately. There was a good apartment near the clinic, so it would be easier to commute and I wouldn't have to see Joyce's face. The next day my daughter-in-law called, but I ignored it. Despite the persistent calls, I never answered. I used to transfer $6,000 to my son's account every month, but I stopped after moving out. I can't imagine their business will thrive with such careless management, and now they've lost my support. Their savings will eventually run out. Without the burden of unreasonable support, I'm living a relaxed and peaceful life. A year has passed since then. I got another call from my daughter-in-law, so I answered. "Hello. Is this Mom? I'm glad you finally answered," she said in a subdued voice. But I wasn't naive enough to be fooled by this. "It's been a while. What is it?" I asked. "The shop is in serious trouble. It might close down." "Close down? Did a meteorite strike it or something?" I replied. There was a few seconds of silence before she continued. "Please help us. We have no customers, and if the shop closes, we won't be able to repay our debts. Some intimidating men are threatening us, offering me a job that works late at night. Please help us, Mom." "I don't have a daughter," I said coldly. "I apologize for everything that happened. I'm sorry, please forgive me." I won't forgive you. What should I do for you to forgive me? I'll never forgive you. You've done too much, and it's too late. You're not nice, Mom. You were giving us $6,000 every month to help us. Why didn't you tell us about that? Joyce, you might fool some men with that sweet voice, but not me. I'm busy, so I'm ending this call. Wait, please. Goodbye. Even after hanging up, they called several times, but I ignored them. Realizing too late, after they've tasted hell, is pointless. 5 days later, when I was about to go home after work, my son and his ex-wife were in the clinic's parking lot. They knelt down in apology, but I just walked past them. Wait, please, Mom. We really need your help. You're the only one we can rely on, my son pleaded. Like I said, I have no daughter and no son. Mom, families help each other in times of trouble, don't they? He continued. Who are you saying that to? I replied. We've reflected on our actions. Please forgive us. I brushed off his ex-wife, who was deeply bowing her head. Even a monkey can reflect on their actions. A monkey? Wait, Joyce, are you calling us monkeys? They argued among themselves, but I turned my back and walked away. I could hear Carol shouting and my sons crying behind me. It's all your damn fault. When I looked back, Carol was attacking my son, but it was none of my business. I heard through the grapevine that their shop went bankrupt. His wife left divorce papers and ran away, and my son fled in the night. It's sad to see such a tragic end. There are many people in the world who try their hardest but still can't make it. I want to support and help those people unconditionally, but I have no intention of helping someone who not only doesn't try, but also makes a fool of others. Now I can focus on my work. Being a medical clerk is rewarding. No one comes to the hospital because they want to, so I want to treat patients with cheerfulness and kindness to give them hope and energy, even if it's just a little.
I was halfway through going over the sales numbers for the quarter when Nathan walked into my office. No knock, no hello, just a loud entrance meant to shake me. Typical Nathan. Julie, he said sharply, throwing a folder onto my desk. We need to talk. Now. I looked at the folder, then at Nathan Lane, the man I'd worked under for the past 5 years. He was the type who only noticed women in the office when he needed coffee or someone to handle his schedule. He liked power and loved reminding others that he had it. Still, I stayed calm. I always did. Of course, I said, motioning to the chair in front of my desk. He didn't sit. He just stood there. The board has decided to restructure the leadership team, he said. We're going in a different direction. We need leaders, not just people who follow spreadsheets. I blinked, surprised. You're firing me? He smiled like he'd just won a game. Let's not be dramatic. We're releasing you from your role. Effective immediately. No warning. No performance reviews. No thank you, even though my team had just hit the highest revenue growth in 4 years. I see, I said quietly. Can I ask why? His voice was cold. You don't have vision. You manage tasks, not people. And to be honest, this industry needs strong leaders, people who are confident and assertive. Those aren't qualities you've shown. There it was. A clear insult hidden behind business talk. He didn't see me as a leader. Not because I hadn't done good work, but because I didn't fit his old school idea of what a leader looks like. I understand, I said, keeping my voice calm and steady. Nathan looked at me, surprised I wasn't angry or crying. But I had learned how to stay in control, especially in rooms full of big egos. I'll need your badge and laptop by the end of the day, he said. Your access will be cut off at 6 p.m. HR has your severance package. I nodded and stood up, holding out my hand. Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate the honesty. He paused for a moment, then shook my hand. Good luck out there, he said, before turning and walking away, clearly pleased with himself. I sat back down and let out a slow breath. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. In fact, I felt lighter. Because what Nathan didn't know, what no one in that office knew, was that I wasn't just a department head anymore. Something big had happened 3 weeks ago. I had been waiting for the right time to act. I looked at the framed photo on my desk. My father was in it, smiling proudly at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the company's first regional office. The same company Nathan had just kicked me out of. I ran my fingers along the frame. "You told me to wait, Dad. Wait for the right moment." I stood up and started packing. I didn't take much, just a few personal items, a mug for my team, and some old notebooks full of ideas Nathan had ignored. Outside, the office was quiet. Some coworkers gave me quick, sympathetic looks. Others avoided eye contact. No one asked anything, but I could see the questions in their eyes. Did she get fired? What happened? I walked out with a small, polite smile. No big goodbye. As soon as I stepped into the sunlight, I felt the weight of 16 years at that company lift off my shoulders. They thought they had ended my career. What they had really done was open the door. I took out my phone and sent a short message to my lawyer. "It's time. Prepare everything." The reply came quickly. "Understood. Shareholder meeting can be scheduled within 6 business days." I looked back at the tall glass building behind me, shining in the sun. Nathan thought this was the end. He had no idea what was coming. The next time I walked into that boardroom, it wouldn't be as an employee. It would be as the majority shareholder. And I would be smiling. The outfit I wore that day was real, but 3 weeks earlier, everything had changed. I had been sitting in the quiet, wood-paneled office of my family's lawyer, looking at an envelope I wasn't allowed to open until exactly 12 p.m. on my 31th birthday. My dad always liked dramatic moments. He said it made serious things feel more meaningful, and this was one of those moments. "Julie," said Mr. Henry, our longtime family lawyer, in a kind and gentle voice, "your father left very clear instructions. You must not open this envelope until your 31th birthday. Not even a day early." I gave a polite smile. I was part curious, part amused. "What is it? A late birthday card or something?" I joked. He gave me a look that said he knew what it was, but he wasn't going to tell me. "Your father was a man of vision," he said instead. "And he trusted you more than anyone." That sentence stuck with me in the days that followed. My dad, who founded and used to run the very company that had just let me go, was someone who believed in planning ahead. And he believed in me. When he died 6 years ago, the company started to change. It felt colder, more focused on numbers than people. Nathan joined around that time. He won over the board, showed off his MBA, and slowly tore down the caring culture my dad had built. I had stayed, thinking I could protect what was left. But now I realized my dad had known this might happen, and he had made a plan. On the morning of my 31th birthday, I opened the envelope alone. I was sitting in the same chair where Dad used to read the newspaper every Tuesday. Sunlight came through the window. The room felt warm and calm. Inside the envelope was a letter and a legal document with fancy stamps. I opened the letter first. It was written by hand in my dad's neat handwriting. "Julie, if you're reading this, it means you've turned 31. That means you're ready." I never doubted it, not for a second. "You've spent your life working twice as hard for half the credit." I saw it, even when you thought I didn't. I saw the late nights, the quiet strength, the honesty when no one else was watching. I also saw how the company changed after I left. I knew there might come a time when you'd need more than just a seat at the table. So I gave you the table. I paused. My hands were shaking as I looked at the second page, the document behind the letter. It was a legal trust, signed and notarized. According to it, 95% of the company's shares that my dad still owned when he stepped down were now in my name. They had been held for me until I turned 31, and now I had full control. 95%. I read it 3 times. Then a 5th just to be sure. I wasn't just a shareholder. I was the shareholder. I was now the majority owner, the one in control. My whole body buzzed with disbelief, adrenaline, and something else. Power. Quiet, steady, real power. I called Mr. Henry right away. "Is this real?" I asked, barely able to speak. "Yes," he said calmly. "Your father set up the trust carefully. It doesn't require public filings. It's solid. The board doesn't know unless you choose to tell them. Why didn't he activate it earlier? I asked. He wanted you to experience the company for yourself, Mr. Henry replied. To see who people really were, and to let you decide if you wanted it before you used it. That line hit me hard. I had spent years being ignored, talked over in meetings, and underestimated. I'd watched Nathan get praise for ideas I had first suggested. I'd seen male coworkers get promoted faster, even when they did less. I had stayed quiet, thinking patience and hard work would eventually pay off. But now I saw the truth. It wasn't about time. It was about power. And now I had it. I set up a follow-up meeting with Mr. Henry the next day. Let's talk about what comes next, I said. He didn't hesitate. We'll prepare the paperwork for a shareholders meeting. We'll let the board know once everything is ready. Not yet, I said. Wait until I give the word. There was a pause. Julie, he said, may I ask what you're planning? I looked out the window of my apartment. Cars moved along the street, people rushed by, not knowing everything was about to change. I'm planning to walk into that boardroom, I said, and show them exactly who they tried to fire. I didn't show up for the exit interview. HR called twice, then sent an email. I ignored all of it. Instead, I sat quietly in a corner booth of a small downtown cafe, drinking a flat white while Mr. Henry reviewed the final version of the shareholder meeting request. It was official. On paper, I now controlled 95% of the company's voting power. That was real. And Nathan never saw it coming. You sure you're ready? Mr. Henry asked, adjusting his glasses as he slid the documents over to me. Once you send this in, you're basically throwing a grenade into their boardroom. I looked him in the eye. My voice was steady. They pulled the pin when they fired me. He gave a small nod. Fair enough. The documents were simple, like many powerful things are. A formal notice of a special shareholders meeting with one agenda item, a leadership review, and the appointment of new executive management. Nathan wouldn't see it coming. That was the point. His whole style was about control, using big words, taking over meetings, and charming people when needed. The board, mostly older men who liked his confidence, had let him do whatever he wanted for too long. They were about to find out what a real leader looks like. It was surprising how weak that kind of power really was. I'll send the notice Saturday morning, Henry said. The meeting will be set for Thursday. That gives them 3 business days to panic. I couldn't help but smile. Perfect. That afternoon, I met with Helen Mirren, the trustee who had managed the shares since my father passed away. She was smart, quiet, and remembered everything. I've watched that man tear down your father's legacy, piece by piece, she said, sliding a folder across the desk. You don't owe him kindness. Inside the folder was everything I needed for Thursday: ownership certificates, voting records, and a full report on how the company had been doing under Nathan's leadership. The facts were clear. Employee happiness had gone down, more people were quitting, money was being wasted on perks for executives, and revenue had stopped growing, even though the market was expanding. He's been covering it up with fake projections, Helen said. If this keeps going, he'll destroy the company within 3 years. I nodded, taking it all in. I'll let the numbers speak for me. As I left her office, I walked by the mural in the hallway. It was a painting of my father standing in front of the first company building. He looked younger than I remembered. His hand rested on the shoulder of a little girl in a red dress, me. He believed in legacy and in people. And even though he was gone, I could still feel his support. By Wednesday morning, talk about my sudden exit had turned into full-on gossip. Old coworkers were texting me. What happened? Did you quit? Nathan's acting like everything's normal, but HR won't say anything. Whatever you did, I hope you're okay. I didn't reply. Not yet. The silence was part of my plan. I wanted Nathan to feel safe. I wanted him to think he had erased me. Let him enjoy being in charge just a little longer. Let him underestimate me one last time. That evening, I stood in front of my mirror and tried on the navy suit I'd bought years ago for important events, but never wore. It was sharp and well-fitted. The kind of outfit you wear when you walk into a room not to ask for power, but to own it. I practiced what I would say. Not a long speech, just a few clear, strong sentences. I didn't need to say much. The truth would do the rest. Thursday morning came. The air was cool and fresh. The city moved like normal, unaware that something big was about to happen in one boardroom. I arrived 10 minutes early, walking past the front desk with quiet confidence. The receptionist looked surprised, but didn't stop me. Upstairs, I saw the boardroom lights were already on. I could see people moving behind the frosted glass. Mr. Henry met me by the elevator. His face gave nothing away, but he was calm. "There and there," he said. "Nathan's already talking. He thinks it's just another meeting to go over strategy." "Not for long," I said. I took a slow breath, smoothed the front of my jacket, and stepped forward. The door to the boardroom opened with a soft click. Heads turned. The room went quiet. And Nathan, someone was mid-sentence when he saw me. He stopped cold. "Julie," he said, raising his eyebrows. "This meeting is for board members only." I gave a polite smile and placed the ownership documents on the table. "Exactly." Then I walked to the head of the table and sat down. The room went completely silent. Nathan stared at me from the far end of the long wooden table. His face shifted from confused to stunned. I could almost see him trying to figure out how I'd gone from the woman he fired last week to this. "Julie," he said again, louder and sharper this time. "This is a board meeting. As I already said, employees aren't allowed." "I'm not here as an employee," I said calmly. "I'm here as the majority shareholder." That one sentence changed the entire mood in the room. Board members looked at each other. Some straightened in their seats. Others leaned in, curious. Mr. Peter, who had been with the company since my father's time, looked down at the document I had handed him. Then he looked up at me, eyebrows raised. "Is this correct?" he asked, adjusting his glasses. "It is," I replied. 90% of the company's shares were given to me through a family trust when I turned 31. All the paperwork is complete, signed, and filed properly. Nathan looked at me, then at Mr. Henry, who was calmly unfolding another copy of the ownership certificate and handing it to the board secretary. "You can't be serious," Nathan said, louder now, sounding panicked. "This is ridiculous. Why would your father?" "Because he trusted me," I cut in. "And because he knew exactly what this company would become without someone watching." The room went quiet again. Everyone knew what I meant, even if I didn't spell it out. Since my father's death, Nathan had changed the company. The culture had become toxic. He rewarded loyalty over skill, appearance over results. And the numbers had started to reflect it. "Let's get to the point," I said, opening a second folder I had brought with me. "As majority shareholder, I've called this special meeting to review the current leadership, starting with the CEO." Nathan stood up, his face red. "This is a coup. A personal attack. You think you can just walk in here?" "I'm not asking," I said, raising my voice just enough to get everyone's full attention. "I'm using my legal rights." Then I slid the financial report across the table. "Let's talk about performance." I didn't need drama. The numbers told the story. Employee satisfaction had dropped by 45% in 3 years. Turnover in key departments had gone up 50%. There were 3 serious discrimination complaints under HR review. Revenue had stayed flat in a market that was growing fast. I had gathered statements from department heads, results from employee surveys, and findings from financial audits. I also had proof of company money being misused, unauthorized travel, large bonuses for executives, and reports that misled investors. I looked at Nathan. "All of it happened under your leadership," I said. The board members started reading the documents. Mr. Peter looked truly upset. The CFO, who had been quiet until now, leaned over and whispered something to the company's lawyer. The lawyer immediately began typing on his tablet. Nathan's jaw tightened. "You're twisting the facts to make your little revenge story look real." "I don't have to twist anything," I said. "I have proof. You counted on the idea that no one with real power would ever question you. That ends today." I let that sink in for a moment. "Effective immediately," I said, pulling out the final document. "I'm submitting a motion to remove Nathan Lane as CEO of this company. As majority shareholder, My vote is enough to make it official. The board secretary looked shocked. You don't need a second vote? I own 95%, I said simply. That's a majority by any definition. Mr. Peter cleared his throat. In line with company rules, the motion passes once the paperwork is complete. Nathan slammed his hand on the table. You can't do this. I already did. No one had to call security. Nathan didn't fight. But as he stormed out, angry and stunned, I noticed something important. He didn't look powerful anymore. He looked small. When the door closed behind him, I took a deep breath and turned back to the board. This company deserves better, I said. Its people do too. And starting today, that's what they're going to get. Mr. Peter nodded, a small smile forming. Welcome back, Julie. By the end of the week, Nathan's nameplate was gone from the CEO's office door. I didn't move into that office right away. I didn't need a big desk to prove I was in charge. I had something more important to do first, rebuild the heart of the company my father started. That work began the Wednesday after the shareholders' meeting. I called an all-staff meeting in the main conference room, the same place where Nathan used to show off sales numbers like trophies and give the same few executives fake praise again and again. But this time, the feeling in the room was different. People came in slowly, whispering to each other. The front rows stayed empty, like no one wanted to look too eager. Some faces looked nervous. Others were unsure. They had been let down before. I stood at the front of the room alone. No slides. No speech. Just the truth. Some of you know me, I began. Some of you only know what you've heard. But let me start by saying this. I didn't come here to take power. I came to rebuild trust. A few heads turned. People were listening. For years, this company was strong because of you. Your ideas. Your long hours. Your belief that what we were building mattered. And somewhere along the way, that was lost. I paused for a moment and let the silence settle. I was fired last week, I said, with a small smile. Told I wasn't the kind of leader this company needed. That I didn't have what it takes to guide us into the future. A few nervous laughs broke out, but the room was starting to shift. My honesty was reaching them. I didn't fight back, not then, because I knew something Nathan didn't. I continued. That leadership isn't about being loud or looking important. It's about vision, respect, and lifting up the people who actually do the work. I looked across the room and made eye contact with people I knew, engineers I had worked beside, assistants who were ignored, junior analysts buried under layers of management. Starting today, that changes. Over the next 3 weeks, I did something different. I listened. I sat down with team leads, department heads, interns, receptionists, even the cleaning crew. I asked what wasn't working. I asked what they needed. I asked who they thought deserved more recognition. Then I took action. I promoted Lauren from the customer service team to head of client experience. She had already been doing the work for a year, while her manager took all the credit. I brought back Douglas, a brilliant product developer who had quit after being passed over again and again in favor of less qualified men. I restructured HR from the ground up. I went through every old complaint that had been ignored or buried. Several mid-level managers who created fear and favoritism were quietly let go during the first week. Then I launched something my father had once dreamed of, the People First Initiative. It was a new program to celebrate great ideas, reward teamwork, and make sure everyone had a fair chance, no matter their title. No more whispers behind closed doors. No more invisible barriers. Just good people doing great work and finally getting credit for it. One evening, I walked through the office alone. The energy felt different now. Warmer, lighter. There was laughter in the break room again. People were staying late because they wanted to, not because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't. Desks had personal touches again, photos, plants, little signs of life. Things that had slowly disappeared while Nathan was in charge. In a quiet hallway near the engineering area, I passed a whiteboard. Someone had written in blue marker, "She came back." Just 3 simple words, underlined twice. I stood there for a moment, reading it again and again. Not "she took over." Not "she fired Nathan." She came back. That meant more to me than any title I now held. The next week, I finally moved into the CEO's office. Not because I needed a bigger space, but because it was the right time. The nameplate on the door was new, sleek metal, simple and clean. Julie Powell, Chief Executive Officer. I didn't bring much with me. Just one framed photo, me and my father on the day the company first opened. We were both smiling, both full of hope. I placed it on the corner of the desk and sat down, not with pride, but with purpose. This company wasn't just mine now. It was my responsibility, and I was going to take care of it. It had been exactly 1 year since I was fired. 13 months since I walked out of this building holding a box, smiling politely, told I wasn't what the company needed. 13 months since Nathan took away my title, without knowing I held something much stronger. And now, I stood at the same glass doors. This time in a tailored suit, holding a leather folder, ready to lead. I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel triumphant. I felt calm. The receptionist stood up as soon as she saw me. "Good morning, Miss Powell." "Julie, please," I said with a smile. "We're all on the same team." The elevator chimed softly as I rode to the top floor. What used to be Nathan's office was now mine. But I hadn't changed it just to make it look different. The walnut desk stayed. The big windows overlooking the city were still there. What I did change were the photos on the walls. Now, they showed our people, team retreats, product launches, moments led by people who had long gone unnoticed. And behind my chair, on the far wall, hung a large portrait of my father. Not to show him off, but to remind me why I came back. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started reading the quarterly report. It was our best quarter in 6 years. Customer satisfaction was up 25%. Employer retention had risen 45%. Revenue was at an all-time high. But what mattered most was how we did it, by being honest, working together, and staying open. The company culture had changed. People didn't whisper their complaints anymore. They spoke openly, and someone listened. Feedback was encouraged. Diversity in leadership had doubled. We weren't just hiring great people. We were helping them grow. There was a soft knock at the door.
"Come in," I said.
It was Lauren, now head of client experience. Her eyes sparkled behind her glasses. "You ready?" she asked. "They're waiting in the conference room." I stood up and smoothed my blazer. "Let's do it." The boardroom felt different now. Not because of the furniture, but because of the people. For the first time in company history, half the board were women. Several members were under 50. They asked tough questions. They brought fresh ideas. They made smarter choices. At the center of the table sat Christian Turner, one of our new strategic advisors. Smart, kind, and steady, the kind of person my father would have trusted. Before we started, Christian gestured to me. "Julie has a few words," he said. I hadn't planned to speak. But as I stood there, every eye on me, not judging but truly listening, I realized something. This was the moment my father had prepared me for. "I want to thank you all," I said, "for believing in change, for making hard choices when easy ones would have been safer, and for helping rebuild a company that puts people before power." I paused, letting the words settle. "Someone once told me I lacked leadership," I continued. "But leadership isn't about being loud or having a title. It's about having vision, being responsible, and doing what's right, even when it's hard." I smiled. Not to impress anyone, but because I meant every word. My father built this company on those values. And I'm proud to say, we're finally living them again. The room was quiet for a moment. Then came the applause. Not loud, but warm and real. The kind that stays with you. That afternoon, I took the long way back to my office. I walked through each department, just like I used to when I was one of the team. I stopped to chat, shared a laugh with the developers, and high-fived the marketing interns who had just pulled off their first big campaign. In the break room, someone had baked cupcakes for an intern's last day. I took one, sat down, and spent 30 minutes talking about everyday things, nothing work-related. Because this wasn't just a company anymore. It was a place where people felt they belonged. And that, more than numbers, titles, or payback, was the real victory.
My name is Linda, and I'm 22 years old. I recently became a housewife after marrying my husband Paul last year. We're the same age, so we understand each other really well. We have similar thoughts, values, and ideas about life, which makes things between us very easy and comfortable. We were very much in love before getting married, and I'm happy to say that our love has stayed just as strong since we tied the knot. But not everything has been smooth. There was something that bothered me a bit when we first got married. After the wedding, Paul and I went to visit his parents to greet them properly. That's when I noticed that my mother-in-law had a very traditional way of thinking. While we were visiting, she suddenly asked, "Now that you're married, you'll be moving in with us, right?" She said it like it was totally expected. Paul and I looked at each other in surprise and said at the same time, "What?" We hadn't planned anything like that. We had always wanted to live on our own as a couple. Paul calmly replied, "No, we plan to live together on our own, just the two of us." My mother-in-law didn't like that at all. She looked shocked and said, "Why? You're the eldest son." Both Paul and I felt uncomfortable. We didn't want to upset her, but we also didn't want to change our plans. Thankfully, Paul's father stepped in and said, "That's an old way of thinking. Let them live how they want to." He helped calm the situation down. However, there was another issue that came up soon after. We hadn't planned to have a big wedding ceremony. Neither of us liked big events, and we thought it would be better to use the money on something more meaningful to us, like traveling. We both preferred something simple and didn't want to spend too much on a fancy party. But of course, not everyone agreed with that either. Then something very strange happened. One day we were visiting my in-laws again. My mother-in-law walked over to a couple who had brought some food and Tupperware. She went to talk to them, but just as she did, my father-in-law suddenly fell out of his chair. Everyone turned to look. He was holding his stomach and looked like he was in a lot of pain. Someone asked him, "What's wrong?" He answered in a weak voice, "I just ate a little food from the kitchen. Why does my stomach hurt so badly?" Then my mother-in-law quietly asked him, "Did you eat some of that?" The way she said it made me feel very uneasy, and I didn't miss her tone. It made me wonder what was really going on. When I told my parents about what was going on, my mother-in-law's face changed color. She looked shocked and upset all over again. She said loudly, "How can you not have a wedding?" As I mentioned before, my mother-in-law is very old-fashioned. She strongly disagreed with our choice not to have a big wedding. She couldn't understand why we would skip such an important tradition. She said, "How are we supposed to explain this to the relatives? The eldest son not having a wedding? What will they think?" In her mind, being the eldest son means you have to follow all the traditions. That includes having a big wedding with family, friends, food, and gifts. Any idea that goes against her way of thinking is something she refuses to accept. Thankfully, my father-in-law stepped in again and supported us. He said calmly, "None of the relatives really care about the wedding. Most of them just see it as a chance to eat good food and have fun. After a while, no one will even remember that you didn't have a ceremony. If you two want to skip the wedding, that's your choice." His kind words made things much easier for us. It helped us avoid being forced into doing something we didn't want to do. My father-in-law respected our wishes and didn't pressure us to follow old customs. It really made me feel grateful. Still, my mother-in-law wasn't happy. She kept her feelings quiet, but I could tell she was disappointed. Despite that, Paul and I got married without a wedding ceremony. We started our life together in our own home, just the two of us. I became a housewife so I could support my husband and take care of our home. I enjoy doing housework, and I feel happy when I make lunch and dinner for Paul every day. Cooking, cleaning, and organizing the house gives me a sense of purpose. I think it will be even more enjoyable when we have children someday. About 3 months after our marriage, my in-laws invited Paul over for a visit. We had not gone to their house since the wedding, and honestly, both of us were a little nervous. There had been some disagreements with my mother-in-law, so we didn't know what to expect. I prepared myself, thinking she might try to control or criticize me again. But to my surprise, she didn't. Instead, she was very kind and welcoming. She smiled at me and said, "If you ever need help with housework or cooking, feel free to ask me. I have so many recipes and tips. I'll teach you everything I know." She really loves to cook and enjoys inviting neighbors to her home for little parties. She told me her home gatherings are very popular, and she holds them quite often. This new side of her gave me hope that maybe things would get better between us. One day, I had a homemade meal cooked by my mother-in-law. It was really delicious. I was happy and surprised by how good the food tasted. Not only was my father-in-law kind, but my mother-in-law also treated me nicely. I started to think that maybe I had worried too much in the beginning. I felt more relaxed, and even my husband agreed. He said he felt comfortable visiting his parents now and that it would be okay to see them once in a while. Then, about 4 months later, my in-laws invited us again. This time they wanted to have a small dinner party at their house. Since we had a good experience during our last visit, we were excited to go. We trusted them more now and thought it would be fun. That evening, my mother-in-law made food that looked like it came from a fancy restaurant. The dishes were beautiful, and everything smelled great. My husband was really impressed. He said, "Wow, your cooking keeps getting better. You didn't make food like this when I was a kid. The vegetables from your garden taste amazing. Thank you for making so many wonderful dishes." I thanked her, and she smiled proudly. She told me to eat a lot and enjoy myself. We all had a good time, and the dinner seemed perfect. But later that night, I started to feel very sick. My stomach hurt badly. I rushed to the bathroom and began to feel dizzy and weak. I heard my husband calling out, "Linda, are you okay?" His voice felt far away. The next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital bed. My husband had called an ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital quickly. The doctors checked everything but couldn't find the cause. They said it didn't seem like food poisoning or anything dangerous. I wondered if maybe I had just eaten too much olive oil from the pasta. That was the only thing that stood out to me. I was put on an IV and rested at the hospital. After a while, I started to feel better. My husband took me home, and we went to bed, both of us feeling confused. What just happened? I asked myself. But then, 3 months later, it happened again. I got sick after eating another meal at my in-laws' house. It was the same kind of pain, and I felt dizzy again. The only thing that was the same both times was that I had eaten my mother-in-law's cooking. Was there something wrong with the food? But my husband ate the same dishes and felt completely fine. Then, just 2 months after that, the same thing happened for the third time. After another meal at my in-laws, I got sick again. I invited a friend over and told her everything. She said, "Could this be from stress? Maybe your body is reacting to the pressure or your feelings about your mother-in-law." That made me wonder, was it the food, or was it something deeper? I felt a little nervous when I heard what my friend said. I had always believed that I was being open-minded and trusting toward my mother-in-law. But maybe, deep down, I had started to feel a little scared or uncomfortable around her. I didn't realize it before, but her actions and the things that kept happening were making me uneasy. After all, every time I visited my in-laws' house and ate my mother-in-law's food, I got sick. My husband noticed this too, and he became very worried about me. So he suggested something that made sense. We should stop visiting his parents' house for a while. He said, "I don't know why this keeps happening, but you only get sick after we eat at my parents' house. Maybe it has something to do with Mom's cooking." I didn't know what to think. The food always looked and tasted great, but still, it was strange how I got sick every time. After that, my mother-in-law called my husband a few times, asking us to come over for dinner. He always turned her down, saying he wanted to protect me. Things stayed quiet for a while. I started to feel healthier and more at ease by not visiting. But then we got another dinner invitation that we couldn't say no to. My brother-in-law and his wife were visiting my in-laws to greet the family after their wedding. Everyone was expected to be there. I felt a little down because I had just started feeling better by staying away from the house. My husband told me, "You don't have to eat much. Just be polite, and we'll leave early if anything happens." That made me feel a bit better. I decided I would try to eat very little and just enjoy the evening without worrying too much. When the day of the party came, we went to the house. My mother-in-law greeted me warmly and kindly, just like before. She smiled and talked nicely to me, and as long as we were just talking, I didn't feel sick at all. That made me think, maybe the food really was the problem after all. Soon, my brother-in-law and his wife arrived, and we all chatted together. The mood was happy, and everything felt normal. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law was busy in the kitchen. She worked quickly and skillfully, preparing dish after dish. The food looked beautiful and smelled amazing. She was clearly proud of what she had made. It looked just like something you'd see in a fancy restaurant. Honestly, all the food I had eaten before tasted really good too. That's what confused me. If the food was bad, wouldn't it taste strange? No matter how many times I thought about it, I couldn't figure out why I kept getting sick. Then, just as we sat down, my mother-in-law turned to me and said, "Linda, you liked this dish last time, didn't you? Go ahead and have some more." I froze for a moment. Should I eat it again? "I made it really delicious today, so please try it," my mother-in-law said with a smile as she looked at me. I didn't know what to do. I sat there quietly, feeling unsure. I didn't want to eat it, but I also didn't want to upset her. Just then, my husband stepped in and said gently, "Linda isn't feeling well today, so please let her eat only what she feels like. She'll take something if she wants later." But my mother-in-law didn't seem ready to give up. "Well then, this small amount should be okay, right?" she said, and placed a small plate of food in front of me. It had a little less food than the others, but she still wanted me to eat something. I was still unsure and wondering what to do when my brother-in-law spoke up. "Linda," he said kindly, "if you're not feeling well, you really don't need to force yourself. I've already greeted you, so if you start feeling sick, don't be shy. Just go home and rest." That surprised me. I didn't expect him to say that, but I was really thankful. I realized then that my husband had probably told his brother and sister-in-law about what had been happening, that I was getting sick every time I ate at my in-laws' house. Now it seemed they were trying to help me too. My mother-in-law looked like she knew she couldn't force me to eat anymore. She paused, then said, "Well, I've already made it. Just take it home in a Tupperware container and eat it later." I wondered why she was so determined to make me eat her food, but I figured that if I took it home, I didn't have to actually eat it. "Okay," I said politely. "Thank you very much." Just as my mother-in-law turned to get the Tupperware container, something shocking happened. My father-in-law suddenly fell from his chair and collapsed on the floor. We all turned, our heads in shock. He was holding his stomach and looked like he was in serious pain. "What's wrong?" we asked. It was strange. He hadn't even started eating the food on the table yet. What could have caused this? Then my father-in-law said something that surprised everyone. "I just had a small bite of something from the kitchen. Why is my stomach hurting like this?" Right then, my mother-in-law asked him in a quiet but tense voice, "Did you eat some of that?" Her tone caught my attention. It didn't feel right. My husband quickly called an ambulance, and my mother-in-law left with my father-in-law to go to the hospital. The rest of us just sat there, shocked and confused. But I couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. My sister-in-law also looked worried. She quietly said to me, "I heard what she said too." We both began to wonder, was there some kind of secret hidden in the kitchen? After what happened at the dinner party, we decided to take a closer look at the kitchen where my mother-in-law had been cooking. We felt something wasn't right, and we wanted to know the truth. When we looked around the kitchen, we found something that really surprised us. Right after that, we got into the car and drove to the hospital where my father-in-law had been taken. We were worried but also curious to find out what the doctors had discovered. As soon as we reached the hospital and got past the front desk, we hurried to his room. When we got close, we heard voices from inside. The doctor was asking my mother-in-law if she had any idea what might have caused her husband's sudden illness. My mother-in-law replied quickly, "No, I have no idea at all." Just then, we walked into the room. My mother-in-law looked surprised and a bit nervous when she saw us. "Oh, you all came here?" she said, forcing a smile. "It's okay. Everything will be fine as long as I'm here." But we weren't about to let this moment pass. I looked at her and said calmly, "I need to talk to you." Then I stepped closer. My husband, his brother, and his brother's wife all followed behind me, standing with me in silence. My mother-in-law looked confused and a bit scared. "What's wrong with you all?" she asked. We saw that my father-in-law's condition had improved a little. His skin looked better, and the doctor said he was more stable. but they still didn't know exactly what had made him so sick. The doctor told us that he had been awake for a short time when he first got to the hospital. He had gone to the bathroom many times and lost a lot of fluids, which caused dehydration and made him pass out. I looked directly at my mother-in-law. I reached into my bag and pulled something out. When she saw what I was holding, her eyes widened. "Do you recognize this?" I asked. She looked nervous and said, "Well, what is it?" She was pretending not to know, but I could tell she was lying. "This is a laxative," I said. "We found a large amount of powdered laxatives in the kitchen." Mother-in-law didn't say anything. The room became quiet. Then the doctor spoke. "It looks like his symptoms match the effects of something called laxa leaves. We'll run some tests to check." He continued, "If we find laxa leaves in his system, we'll ask him when he took them. If he doesn't remember taking them, that means someone may have given it to him on purpose. In that case, it could be considered a crime, an injury charge." As soon as the doctor said that, my mother-in-law panicked and shouted, "No, it's not what you think." Everyone looked at her. The truth was beginning to come out. "I didn't mean to make him eat that food. It was just a mistake," my mother-in-law said nervously. My husband didn't stay quiet. He looked at her seriously and asked, "Then who were you trying to feed? It to?" She hesitated. "Well, it's not what you think," she stammered. She looked very nervous, and it was clear she didn't want to answer. My husband spoke firmly. "If you're not going to tell us the truth, we'll have to call the police and let them investigate." At that moment, she gave up and said, "Okay, fine, I'll tell you everything." Then she took a deep breath and confessed. "It was all meant for Linda," she said. "I wanted to punish her by putting laxa leaves in her food." I was shocked. "Punish me? Why? What did I ever do to you?" She looked at me with anger in her eyes. "Because ever since my son married you, he changed. He stopped listening to me. He didn't live with us, and you didn't even have a proper wedding. You made him do all of that. You turned him against me. That's why I see you as my enemy." Her words hurt, but I knew they were not fair. "That's not true. Paul and I made those decisions together," I said. "It wasn't just me. My husband also stood up for me. We discussed everything together. Don't blame her for your disappointment." Then I asked her directly, "So all this time you were putting laxa leaves in my food on purpose?" She nodded. "At first I only used a little. That's why you didn't get too sick." "That's nonsense," I shouted. "I was rushed to the hospital. How can you say it wasn't much?" My husband and his brother got angry too. "How could you do something so cruel to Linda?" my husband said. "She did nothing wrong." His brother added, "If someone treated my future wife like this, I'd be furious too." Then both of them said something that shocked everyone. "We don't want anything to do with you anymore," they said to their mother. "You've gone too far." My mother-in-law looked terrified. She begged them, "Please, don't say that. I didn't mean for things to go this far." Just then, we heard a voice from the hospital bed. My father-in-law had woken up and heard everything. "You did something terrible because of your pride," he said. "You should be arrested for what you did. I'm ashamed of you." "No, you don't mean that. You're not going to divorce." "Me, are you?" she asked him, looking scared. "That's not enough," he replied. "You will pay Linda $30,000, and you're going to earn it yourself. I won't help you at all." She panicked. "I can't. I've never worked before. I've always been a stay-at-home mom." "Too bad," he said. "If you don't agree, I'll divorce you and report you to the police." She had no choice. Now my mother-in-law is working to pay me back, little by little. My father-in-law watches her closely, and every dollar she earns goes to me. My mother-in-law seems very overwhelmed now. She looks tired and stressed, and it's clear that working and paying back the money is not easy for her. But to be honest, I think she deserves it. She hurt me deeply, not just physically, but emotionally too. What she did was wrong, and now she has to face the results of her actions. While she's going through all of this, my husband and I are living a peaceful and happy life. We've become even closer after everything that happened. He supports me fully, and I feel safe with him by my side. My father-in-law also stood up for me, and I'm very grateful to him. Both he and my husband told me that I don't have to see my mother-in-law again if I don't want to. That brought me a lot of relief. Just knowing I don't have to face her anymore makes me feel so much better. I've been through a lot these past few months. The stress, the hospital visits, the confusion, it all took a toll on me. But now I'm finally healing. And with my husband and father-in-law around, I know I'll be okay no matter what happens in the future. Feeding someone food with laxa leaves on purpose is a crime, isn't it? How could someone do something like that so easily, especially a mother-in-law? To her daughter-in-law? It's hard to believe. Most people would never imagine a family member doing something so harmful. It makes me wonder, why did my father-in-law marry someone like her? He seems like a kind and fair person, and both of his sons turned out to be good men too. Maybe my mother-in-law wasn't always like this. Maybe she changed over time. I don't know the full truth about her past, but what she did now was serious and dangerous. Her punishment is fair. Now she has to work and pay me $30,000, just like my father-in-law said. She is not allowed to skip work or hide money, and he watches over everything to make sure she does what she's supposed to. She's learning the hard way that actions have consequences. As for me, I'm trying to move forward. I'm focusing on my life with my husband. We cook together, laugh together, and support each other. We're building a peaceful home full of love, trust, and respect. I hope one day this painful memory will fade. And more than anything, I hope my mother-in-law learned something from this experience. Maybe, just maybe, she'll become a better person. But for now, I'm happy. I'm with the man I love, and we're living the life we chose together. That's all I could ever ask for. And yes, my wish is simple, that my husband and I will live happily ever after.
My name is Mary, and I'm 38 years old. I've been a homemaker for 14 years, married to Scott, a doctor. We don't have any children, but we've had a reasonably happy life. One day, our 14-year marriage ended abruptly. Scott came home late as usual and said, "Mary, this is the end for us." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "I've decided to marry my mistress, so we're getting divorced today." "Marry your mistress? What are you talking about?" "I've made up my mind. I'm leaving you and marrying her. Besides, we didn't marry for love, so you probably don't care, right?" "It's true. Ours wasn't a love marriage. Scott's parents wanted him to marry, and they found me a suitable partner. We hardly knew each other and got married quickly. The only thing we had in common was our last name. People might say it was fate, and I liked the idea. So we got married. We managed our married life well enough, but I never imagined we would divorce after 14 years. It wasn't a love marriage, but we've lived together for 14 years. Now you suddenly want to marry your mistress. When did you start cheating on me?" "It's not cheating. I met her about a year ago. She's a Lauren at our hospital, and she's charming and caring, unlike you. It's natural I was drawn to her." "Natural? Are you serious?" "Yes, I've always been serious. These 14 years with you have been hell. I'm sick and tired of supporting someone so boring. But that ends today." "How can you talk like that?" "It's the truth. You're a homemaker who does nothing, while she's an active Lauren. Ask any man. They all choose her over you. Do you think a successful doctor like me needs someone like you?" After a pause, I spoke first. "Fine, let's divorce. I never thought I'd be married to someone who could say such things so calmly. We can discuss alimony and property division later with a lawyer. I'll sign the divorce papers and send them later. Until then, I'll go back to my parents' house." But Scott interrupted. "No need for discussions. We don't even need divorce papers." "What do you mean?" "We can't separate without them. If we don't divorce, you can't remarry." "You're so naive. The truth is I never submitted our marriage registration. We're not a married couple, just cohabitants. So there's no divorce, no alimony, no property division. You thought you'd get my money, but you won't get a penny. That day, I was supposed to submit our marriage registration, but I couldn't go because of an urgent matter. Turns out he never submitted it. Wait, are you joking? We've been living as a married couple for 14 years. It's impossible that you didn't submit it. Normally, yes, but I made a rule at the beginning. If you went to the office, everything would be ruined. When we got married, we made some rules. I would handle all the household chores, get an allowance, and not work part-time. Scott would handle all governmental and official matters. Why would you do such a thing? Because I was about to be forced into a marriage with someone I didn't love. I wasn't going to submit it easily. I was saving marriage for someone I was destined to be with. Then you should have refused the marriage proposal in the first place. I couldn't refuse. My parents are stubborn and wouldn't listen. Plus, I wanted a housekeeper. I'm a busy doctor and can't handle household chores. So I decided to marry you as a housekeeper. It was a good deal for you too, right? You could eat well and have a roof over your head without working. You seemed desperate to get married too. What? You were probably feeling pressured because your friends were getting married. Even though we weren't actually married, you were seen as the woman who married a doctor. This 14-year relationship was a win-win for both of us. That's all it was, and it ends today. You should be grateful for the good times you had. Now you have to live on your own without relying on others. I can't believe this. Oh, and one more thing. Don't tell my parents about this. If you do something unnecessary, you know what will happen to your father, right? My father, who runs a medical equipment sales company, has a contract with the hospital where Scott works. It was through my marriage to Scott that this connection was made. I told my in-laws that he's threatening to end my father's contract if I do anything. He laughed and said, "It's your fault for being fooled. How sad to be thrown out with nothing." But he was the one who would be thrown out without knowing it. I couldn't help but laugh. "What's so funny?" he asked. "I can't believe you became a doctor with that kind of knowledge." "What do you mean?" "I knew all along about your mistress and that you never submitted our marriage registration." "That's impossible. I've been preparing for the day you'd bring it up, waiting to get my revenge. I had suspected his affair for the past 5 months, but didn't have enough proof to confront him. So I hired a private investigator." "Ma'am, there are 2 things I need to tell you," the investigator said. "First, your husband is indeed having an affair. We have evidence of him entering a hotel with a Lauren from his workplace. Second, from their conversations, it seems you two are not legally married." "Not legally married? What does that mean?" "I overheard your husband and his mistress at a cafe. He said they didn't need to worry about alimony or property division because they never submitted a marriage registration." "I can't believe it. We've been living as a married couple for 14 years. I don't know why he didn't submit the marriage registration. That's why he never let you handle any official procedures. I can't believe this. How could this happen? It's rare but not unheard of to not submit a marriage registration for 14 years. Am I just supposed to accept this? If we were never married, there's nothing I can do." "Not necessarily." "What do you mean?" "Let's make him pay for deceiving you for 14 years. First, we need to prepare without him noticing." So I began to prepare with the investigator to punish my husband. "So what if you knew we were never married?" Scott said, "It doesn't matter what I do with other women. I don't need to take any responsibility." I felt pitiful for not knowing anything, but it seemed you were the one who was pitiful. "What do you mean?" "We're considered to be in a common law relationship." "So what?" "You might not know, but you can actually claim alimony and divide property in a common law relationship." "What?" He didn't realize that registering as a common law marriage would backfire on him. You can make claims in a common law relationship. It's not well known, but yes, you can. There are some conditions, but it looks like you meet them. What are these conditions? A common law relationship is established based on 2 criteria. First, both parties must have the intention to marry. If it's just living together, that's cohabitation. Mutual intent to marry is key. That seems subjective and hard to judge. For example, if you had a wedding ceremony or are recognized as a couple by others, it can be acknowledged. We had a wedding ceremony and our parents and friends know us as a couple. Then the first criterion is met. The second is living as if married, including sharing household life for over 2 years. You've been living together as a couple for over 14 years, and as a homemaker, you've obviously shared household finances. This is recognized as a marital relationship. So that means, if you can provide proof of what we discussed, you can claim alimony and divide property. I'm not an expert, so I'll introduce you to a lawyer. After consulting the lawyer, I was told that I could indeed claim alimony and property division from my husband. So I'm going to demand alimony and property division from you. I informed my husband, who turned pale. His confidence vanished. But even if you can claim alimony and property division, you're just an unemployed woman. Do you plan to rely on your parents after being kicked out? Didn't I say I was preparing? I've already found a job starting next month. I've also got my eye on a new place. Don't worry about me. What? He thought I, a clueless homemaker, would be helpless, but the tables had turned. I'll also make sure to discuss this with your parents, just so you know. Do you not care what happens to your father? If they want to break the contract, let them. What? Sure, you were the link to the hospital, but the contract continued because of my father and his company's efforts. Whether or not they keep the contract is up to them. They'll break a contract just because the doctor's wife of 14 years was a lie. Try saying that. My father and I won't be affected if the contract is broken over this. It only shows their lack of trust. We'll just find another hospital to partner with. Saying this, I took out my phone. You're not calling your parents, are you? He asked. That's exactly what I'm doing. Our parents think we're still married. It's only natural to inform them if this relationship is ending. To my surprise, my husband began to apologize. Please let me talk to them. Don't call. Why? You know how strict my parents are. If they find out about this, I'm done. What does that have to do with me? You're asking me not to tell the truth because your parents are strict. Are you kidding? You could have refused the marriage from the start if you didn't intend to marry. After 14 years of a selfish marriage, you're afraid of your parents finding out? I can't accept that. I decided to tell both our parents and made the calls. All 5 were shocked and arranged a meeting in our house. I've heard everything over the phone. Is it true that you pretended to be married for 14 years without submitting a marriage registration? His father asked. It's true. I didn't submit it. Why would you do such a thing? Didn't you think about how Mary would feel? I had no choice. No choice? How can you even say that? It's actually your fault, Dad and Mom. I didn't want to get married yet, but you started looking for a bride, saying it was time. You arranged meetings and tried to force a marriage on me. You're the one who agreed to the marriage, aren't you? I had to agree. If I had refused, you would have made a fuss about it. So I decided to get married. If you were resolved to marry, why didn't you submit the marriage registration? I read about a man on the internet who was in the same situation. He didn't want to marry, but had to because of his parents. He lived a married life without submitting the registration, then revealed the truth when he found someone he truly loved. That's appalling. And what happened to that guy in the end? He's now married to the person he loves and has a real marriage. I will marry my girlfriend and have a real marriage, my husband said. My parents, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. A real marriage, huh? Sure, you might not have had a love marriage, but do you remember what you said at the wedding? What? You said, we will never forget to care for each other and build a home full of smiles. What did those words mean to you? We sent our daughter to you hoping for her happiness, but you deceived her for 14 years without submitting a marriage registration. Did you build a home full of smiles? Now you're leaving her for another woman. Can someone who acts without a shred of care, even if they change partners, truly have a real marriage? Well, I was happy you married our daughter, not just because you were a doctor. I thought she could build a happy home with someone as sincere as you, but it seems we were mistaken and deceived. And you threatened our daughter that if she told us about this, you'd cut off the contract with our company? What? Seriously? If you're going to threaten our daughter, we'll cut off the contract ourselves. Be warned, we will tell the truth when asked why. If you do that, there will be rumors at the hospital. Rumors? Well, yes, but that's the result of your own actions. You were the one who threatened us with cutting off the contract. My husband was in complete panic. Please wait. This is getting out of hand. Let's just talk. At that moment, my father-in-law grabbed my husband by the collar, furious. We didn't raise you to be such a scoundrel. What were you thinking? Father, please stop. By not submitting the marriage registration, you might have thought you were doing yourself a favor. But because of your selfish actions, Mary was strung along for 14 years. What were you thinking causing such trouble to others? The living room fell silent. My husband, faced with my father-in-law's words, had nothing more to say. Mary and your parents, I'm truly sorry for the trouble caused by this idiot. No, you parents shouldn't apologize. It's not your fault. However, it's partly our responsibility as parents for letting him act this way. For now, we'll take him home and make sure he doesn't continue his reckless behavior. We'll deal with the aftermath properly. We're very sorry for all this. With that, my husband was taken away by his parents back to his childhood home. You've been through a lot. For now, you should come back home and rest. We'll think about what to do next later. You don't need to worry about anything right now, my parents said. I was completely exhausted and deceived, but my parents spoke to me with such kindness. Thank you, but I won't go back home yet. I still have things I need to do, I said. I declined their offer and stayed in my own home. I had to prepare for the final settlement with my now ex-husband, gathering evidence for our common-law relationship. I was getting ready to claim alimony and divide our assets. A few weeks later, I arranged a meeting with a lawyer. Even if I agreed to alimony, why should I divide my property? She's been a homemaker for 14 years, never working a day. All the furniture, clothes, and food, I pay for everything. Now you're telling me to hand over the money I worked hard for and the furniture I bought, he ranted. Yes, that's correct. The money you earned and the furniture are subject to property division. Why does it have to be like that? Who did the housework while you were working? Who cooked meals with the groceries you bought? That's irrelevant now. No, it's very relevant. A homemaker is entitled to property division because housework and childcare have economic value. Speaking as a human, not just a lawyer, do you think housework is something anyone can do, that it's just expected of a homemaker? The reason you could live freely is because of her support. Don't get that wrong. What? This situation is a result of your actions, yet you have the audacity to be selfish. What did you say? Never mind. Anyway, she's entitled to half of the assets for property division. That's how it is. Damn. Regarding alimony, we intend to claim $200,000 from you. $200,000. Why so much for a relationship that wasn't even a marriage? It's precisely because you weren't married. Normally, alimony claims in common law relationships range from $20,000 to $80,000. However, in your case, you pretended to be married for 14 years and selfishly tried to kick her out when you found someone else. The amount is determined by the severity and duration of your actions. But still, you may think 14 years is a short time, but it's longer than you realize. During that time, she devoted herself to you, believing you were a married couple. You have no right to complain after betraying her. It was a perfect rebuttal. He couldn't say anything and reluctantly agreed to my demands. I also sent a notice of claim for alimony to his mistress. I knew who and where she was thanks to the investigator. She was a Lauren at the same hospital. When she heard from him that there would be no alimony or property division, she must have been shocked by my claim. Wait a minute, this isn't what you told me. What do you want? I told you not to talk to me at the hospital. I got this from your wife. You said there wouldn't be any alimony because you weren't married. What's this all about? I later found out that in a panic after getting my alimony claim, she confronted him at the hospital with the notice I sent. Okay, let's talk about this later. Not here, there are too many people around. We'll both be in trouble if this turns into a rumor. I don't care about that. I can't pay this kind of alimony. You said it was okay, so you should pay it for me. What? I won't pay a penny. You were the one who wanted this relationship. You said I was the only one for you and that you wanted to marry me. Hey, quiet down. Everyone can hear us. Just so you know, I'm not in the wrong here. If you want to make amends with your wife, do it yourself. Tell her I don't owe her a penny and that you'll take care of everything. Wait, hold on. Hey. This exchange revealed their affair to the entire hospital. It quickly became the talk of the place. The final blow was my father's request to the hospital. I apologize, but we would like to terminate our contract at the end of next month. The hospital, aware of the rumors, asked my father, "Excuse me for asking, but is the reason for canceling the contract related to Dr. Scott's affair? It's already become a rumor." Yes, a Lauren presumed to be involved caused quite a scene. I never imagined he had been pretending to be married for 14 years without submitting a marriage registration. I never expected it to turn out like this. You mean he never submitted the registration? Weren't you aware that he hadn't submitted the marriage registration? All we knew was that he, being married, had an affair. What do you mean? He didn't submit the marriage registration. With my father's request, it was revealed that he had been deceiving me for 14 years by not submitting it. This news spread among the other Laurens. Dr. Scott deceived his wife for 14 years without submitting a marriage registration, and he had an affair with a Lauren. How low? How could he do that? Can someone really not notice for 14 years? Apparently, Mary's maiden name was the same, and he managed all the official paperwork. That's scary. The rumors spread not only among hospital staff, but also to patients. Both Scott and his mistress received cold stares, and, unable to endure it, they soon resigned from the hospital. My father asked me, "Did you manage to get the alimony?" Yes, I received payments from both him and his mistress. She refused to pay until the end, claiming she was deceived, but the lawyer made it clear her argument wouldn't hold, and she reluctantly agreed to pay. That's good. What about the contract with the hospital? Did it get canceled? No, that's off the table. He resigned, and since our company is trusted, the hospital asked us not to cancel the contract. We couldn't cancel it after they asked like that. That's a relief. I started a new life in a new place and was living happily. About a year and a half later, my ex-husband contacted me. Is it true you got remarried? I had married a man I met at work, and somehow he had found out. I wondered whose number this was, going through the trouble of changing your number just to contact me. Just answer my question. Did you get married? Yes, I got married. You betrayed me. Betrayed you. We were never legally married, so I didn't think it would matter to you, right? That's a different matter. Indeed, things are different now. We're completely separated, so my marriage has nothing to do with you. Is that why you contacted me? He seemed at a loss for words, then taunted, "Of course, you're still unmarried since you probably haven't submitted a marriage registration again. You're that kind of woman." But things weren't as he imagined. Unfortunately for you, my husband isn't the kind of person to do such terrible things. He knows all about your story, so to ensure I wouldn't feel anxious, we went to the office together to submit the registration. Sadly for you, things aren't as you thought. I understand you might want me to be unhappy because you're miserable, but sorry, we're happily married. I told him this and hung up the phone. I don't know what kind of life he leads now, but unless he changes his selfish ways, it's unlikely he'll ever find happiness.